With wires, there's there's airbrushing, there's dry brushing, there's adding paint, there's also removing layers, to create and get some of the textures and get that aged, worn look. And you
must sell a lot of those. I mean, those are really nice.
There's
a lot of real fans of Michael Myers too, and that's something that you would just like, just wear again and again, that story. Think about the evolution of that mask itself. I don't know the whole story. All I know is that it was a William Shatner mask painted white. And now I look at yours, and I was looking really close at like the dugout marks on it, or the scratches and stuff. I'm like, my God, how the hell do you even do that? And what would you know? I don't. What is the evolution of the mask? I mean, who made the original masks after that? I mean, I learned on this show that Halloween was shot in like 45 days.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, oh, shit, really? And so
crazy.
Now I wonder about the mask sitting here talking to you. Do you know anything about the history of that thing?
Yes. The mask started off, it was a Don Post Studios mask. Don Post was like the mask maker for decades. There wasn't a Kmart store in any region that you wouldn't find Don Post Studios. And it started off, it was a Star Trek mask and a very oddly Captain Kirk mask. But they got sent to, there's a little kind of like a theatrical shop on Sunset Boulevard. I believe it's still open. I'm not sure if the name's changed or not, but they purchased, Tommy Wallace got sent in and they're like, look, in the script, he's called the Shape. We need something just simple and scary. That's all he was told. And he went in, and I believe he grabbed a Nixon mask, which that would have been odd. There was a clown mask, and then there was this Shatner one. And his paint job was actually quite simple. He removed the sideburns. He hit it with appliance white spray paint, certain angle, left some of the skin tone on it, and he just widened the eyelids on it. That was it. That's all it was. And I guess when he walked in, Carpenter and everybody just, their jaws just dropped. They knew right away. It was just, when you think about it too, isn't it usually true? It's the simplest things that can be the most terrifying. It could be a mask or a person with their eyes are all white or their eyes are all black. It doesn't always have to be crazy, elaborate things. I'd be curious to know, because I'm always doodling and sketching and coming up with ideas. And growing up as a kid, what were images, or what are things that scared you or just like really stuck in your head?
And that guy, I know Carpenter, he directed it, and there's the story and all like that, but the guy who decided to make that mask did something that was just like, I don't know, like you said, he found this simplicity that was just so terrifying. They're just like, don't do anything else. It was not only that, it had to take someone like Carpenter to come in and go, oh yeah, that's creepy, dude. We're going with that.
And the perfect mannerisms. He didn't speak. He moved very slow and kind of odd and methodical. I mean, there was just a lot of very simple elements to it. I mean, he's the only one I know that could sit up from the ground and it'd be terrifying.
Yeah. I'll never get that out of my head. And then there's Halloween 2, and they must have had a time where they're like, we have to make another mask. Do you know anything about how that started? And
Deborah Hill had, I couldn't tell you how many were made. There's some myths and some theories, but nothing has really been set in stone, or not that I've found. But when they went to make Halloween 2, Dick Warlock then became the Shape. And the mask is the original mask, but this is the funny part. It does look different in there for a number of reasons. His head shape was different than the original Myers, so it doesn't have the Nick Castle. They call it the Castle stretch in the mask world.
Now I know exactly what you mean, because in the 80s I was a kid, and so cable TV was all we had, and so they shoved that shit over and over and over. And I would, me and my dad were all about special effects and shit, you know, and we're like, look, it's a little different, you know. So that's another mask, definitely, you know. And but go on with your story. I was just like,
no, it's the same mask. I guess Deborah Hill, and as a lot of people back then, she was an avid cigarette smoker, and that mask was thrown under her bed. And how many packs of cigarettes it took in the dirt and cobwebs and everything.
oh,
So you go from 78 and fast forward to, 81, just that wear and tear from it aged that mask enough. And then when they were done filming it, Dick Warlock said, "Hey, is it possible, Deborah, can I keep this? And can I have the scalpel and the coveralls?" And she, "Yeah, we're not going to make another one. We killed him." And so he wound up with that. And to see the mask now in its current state, it's all deteriorated and just because nobody knew, how typically a latex mask like that does not last, and they were thinner. They just, over time, it just basically rotted. There's images out there of the actual mask in its current state. And yeah, like the bottom chin is missing, which kind of was what everyone thought would happen in the new Halloween Ends movie. They were, a bunch of us mask makers were kind of like, ooh, they're going to
take out that mask.
They're going to go for that.
Yeah.
But they didn't. They kind of evolved. It made sense how they did and why they did what they did. It was a 4-year time gap. It wasn't, that much change to it. But no, that original mask, and Dick Warlock used to
sat under her bed for 4 years.
Yeah.
That is a fantastic story. That blows my mind.
He used to take it with him to conventions, and he would let people try it on. Imagine that.
Wow. And now that thing's like 45 years old.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. So, do you know what goes into making the masks that they use now? I mean,
now, there's a lot of new films that do silicone masks. They still start off basically, you got your clay, you sculpt it out, and then you either use it's basically almost like a form of plaster, hydrocal or ultracal. You mix that up, and then you slowly cover your mold, and you build a base on it. You let that harden. Then you remove your clay from your mold, clean out your mold, pour in your latex, agitate it, get the air bubbles out, let that cure, and then pull it out, and there's your mask.